Okay, welcome everyone to our first Tuesday Live, where our Tuesday talk, where we're going to be talking about how you can turn your expertise into a educational enterprise, how you can take that knowledge on your head and how you can scale it up into online courses, creating a digital learning experience using the digital technologies to share and scale your knowledge. Thank you for everyone. So this is our first Tuesday talk, and our plan is, where possible, going to be doing them every week. So tune in at this stage at 2:30 for our Tuesday talk. So for those that have tuned in, thank you very much. Great to have you here. For those that are listening to the recording, again, also thank you for clicking into the recording for that session as well. I'm just going to quickly check a few things, bit of technical stuff that I've got to manage. And great. Now, what we've also done is we have, so we're using StreamYard. So we're going live from StreamYard into our Facebook group and also into our YouTube channel. So fingers crossed it's all working well. The other thing that I've done, and we certainly put the comment in the Facebook group there, we've created a tool which gives you an idea, an option to look at, to put in some frequently asked questions. So basically that's what we're doing. As part of these Tuesday talks is me just turning up and answering any of the questions that we've got there. So if anyone's interested, then you can jump on to our site that we've got where you can post the questions. Easiest way to do that is bit.ly/FAQ, FAQ all uppercase, superb. So bit.ly FAQ superb, FAQ all uppercase, superb in lowercase. And I'm just going to drop that into the comments so people should be able to see that in the chat. So bit.ly/FAQ superb. And we've got a number of questions there already. And the tool that we're using also allows you to vote up questions. So might as well get underway. I'm going to go through and look at answering some of the questions. So the first question that we've got here, we've got we've got two here with 2 votes. First one is, how do I get started with designing my online course? Okay, great question, and a question that we commonly get asked. It's like, where do I start? And yeah, people have probably got this, so much knowledge in their head, and they are sort of struggling with, how do I get out of my head? Where do I start? What do I do? And really, the simple answer is to start at the beginning, but that's not really the best way. So to start with, you need to start with thinking about your strategy, thinking about your why. Why are you building the course? Okay, because that's really going to determine so much stuff. Okay, so thinking about why it is that you're building that course. Now, if you're doing it because you want to create impact and you want to, change the lives of people, and you want to create this, course or learning experience that's actually going to provide some transformation for people, then what you actually build and what you need to do and what you need to create is going to be quite different to if you're just going, okay, I just want to create a mini course that's going to provide some people some information and people can pay for it, and it's just going to run on its own and generate you some income. 2 completely different courses, and as a result are going to need 2 completely different approaches to how you are going to design those courses. So that's the first thing, thinking about your why. Why are you doing it? And then thinking about, well, what does the course actually look like? As I said, is it a mini course? Is it what we refer to as a MOOC style course, something that's a bit bigger than a mini course, but still probably quite self-paced, maybe got some social and collaborative stuff tied into it? Or is it a masterclass where there's not just the online stuff, but maybe there's live sessions with you as the facilitator, solving problems and providing your input, and whether that's a virtual live or a face-to-face live. So really think about that. So that's probably the first thing is to get started with the why around that. Once you've got that why, then second part is then really to think about, well, what's the problem that you're going to solve? And from there, then that really gives you an opportunity to unpack all of that. So simple answer, how do I get started with my online course? Work out the why, and then work out what format it's going to be in, and then what problem you're going to solve. Next question that we have there is, what is the best platform to use? Okay. Again, a very common question that we're asked, okay? And often this is asked probably at the wrong time. We see so many people go, I want to build an online course, and probably relates to the question before that. So I need to start with getting a platform, okay? And that often is the wrong approach, okay? Starting with the platform without considering all of the other stuff is not necessarily going to be the best way that you can do that. There's so many platforms out there, and they all have a number of different features. So you almost need to leave the technology stuff, the tech piece, until you've actually got some good understanding of why you're building a course, what type of course it is, what problem you're solving, but then also what does it look like? What does the experience look like? Because each of the platforms, while they have a number of features that are similar, they're also quite different. Okay, so, and we've just got a few videos going up onto our YouTube channel, which we're going to be doing a bit more of a deep dive into some of the pieces of technology. Now, some of the platforms are probably built, I sort of see some of these learning platforms and probably built more with a marketing focus, and probably built by marketing people. And for me, as the chief learning architect at Superb Learning, with 20 years plus experience in learning design, for me, I want something that I can create a robust and good learning experience, something that is actually going to provide information, but it's not a passive sit there, just consume content, but something where we might actually get people to interact and do stuff as well. Now, a lot of these platforms we see have got a very strong marketing front end, but the reality is that they probably lack a bit in the back end in terms of the designing stuff. Often what we see is some of these platforms just have the ability to put in a video and maybe some basic text content and some attachments. And for us, we think that there needs to be a little bit more there in terms of what that learning experience could look like. So there's a few things there that I'd be looking at that, what it is. And if you start with the technology, and if the technology just allows you to put in video and just text, then you're very limited in what you're going to do. And then what you're designing is determined by the platform. This quote, if people have heard me before, I keep talking about this quote, if all you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. So if you start with a piece of technology, then what you're going to build is going to be determined by that. Whereas if you actually think about the experience first, and think about the different experiences that you might want to create, and then go looking for the platform or potentially platforms, or maybe there's some other things that need to come into the platform to provide that experience. For example, you might want to actually bring in gamification elements where you can have badges and points to reward and motivate people. Not all of the platforms have that. So if that's something you want to include in your experience, then that's going to be limited to what you can do. You might want to actually bring in other forms of media, not just video and text-based content, but bring in other interactive elements. Again, not every platform allows for that. So that's going to determine that. So yeah, the best platform to use really does come back to the experience that you want to create. Okay. Now, for us, what in the experience we want to create, we find LearnWorlds to be a really great platform because it ticks a number of the boxes that we want to provide. Was also looking at another great platform, Experienceify, okay, and has some really great features, especially in the space of the gamification and providing nudges and triggers, which also is something that I think is really valuable. But in my opinion, it lets itself down with the media that you can create in that. But yeah, best platform to use really does depend on the experience that you want to create. So I hope I've answered that question. And just going to jump back in and let's have a look and see what is our next question that we've got there. How do I choose the course topic when I have so much content and ideas on what to deliver? Okay. Again, quite a common question, great question. I also think, though, that it is the wrong question. We see so many people putting posts out in other groups and people going, oh, how do you choose the course topic, or what course topic should you choose? Okay. I think it's not quite the right question. I think you need to reframe your thinking, okay? And think not necessarily about the course topic that you want to create, but what is the problem that you're going to solve, okay? People want a problem solved. Again, another great quote that I love is, people don't want to buy a drill bit, they want a hole, okay? People don't want to buy your course, they want the solution that your course provides. Your course is simply the tool to provide them with that outcome. So thinking about the course topic is probably not necessarily the right thing. You probably need to think about, what is the problem that I'm going to solve? And from that then gives you everything else that really sets you up to go and design the rest of your program. Once you know what the problem is that you're solving, then you can look at, well, why aren't people doing it? What's the gap? How do I move them from the problem to the prize? How do we bridge that gap? And all of the other stuff, including what your course, the topics or the modules or the chapters, the content that sits inside that course is going to fall out of that. So for that question, how do I choose the course topic when I have so much content and ideas on what to deliver, would reframe that to going, what are the problems I can solve? And then also with the problems that you can solve, thinking about, well, is it a problem that people need solving? But also, is it a problem that people are willing to pay for? Because you can go and solve a problem, but it might not be a problem for many people, or it might be a problem that people are not necessarily willing to pay for. Okay. Example, I saw someone put out a course that was helping unemployed people to write resumes and get a better job. Okay, great. Problem to be solved. Unfortunately, for a lot of those people, they probably couldn't afford the course because of the price point that the course was set at. So solving a problem, but not necessarily something that the people who have got that problem are going to be willing to pay for. So I think that's the other part of selecting the problem that you're solving. Is it solving a problem? Do people actually want to pay for it? So that's a question there. Okay, what is the next question that we've got? Just going through, having a look. Okay, how do I keep people engaged in the course? Okay, again, another great question. Okay, often we see the completion rates of courses being very, very low. And I see that there's two reasons for that. Okay. And I say courses can fall into two categories. There's your vitamin courses and there's your painkiller courses. Your vitamin course is one of these nice to have type course. Someone goes, oh, I'd like to, go and learn how to, I don't know, be better at playing the banjo, okay? But there's no real need for it. They want to learn it, okay? And they might be highly motivated and they might complete the course, but then again, they might, lose a bit of interest. A bit like, you go, okay, I want to get healthier, so I'm going to start taking vitamins. And if you're anything like me, you've probably got a shelf in your cupboard somewhere that's full of vitamins that you actually haven't finished taking because you've just lost motivation, lost interest in that. Whereas your painkiller course is one that actually solves immediate pain right now. Okay. And what we see is that I believe a lot of the completion rates are for courses that are vitamin courses, not painkiller courses. Okay. So one of the ways to make sure that people are engaged is to make sure that they're motivated and have a clear idea on where they're going, on how they get to that solution. And it's one that solves the problem for them. So by building a painkiller course, then they're going to be motivated to solve that problem. Okay. Also, it's about creating a bit of tension in there and keeping people motivated through that process. The other things as well is when you're looking at trying to keep people engaged is really looking at, well, how do we actually switch these people's brains on? Not saying that they're maybe that's not the right term, but certainly we want them to switch that on to the problem that we're solving. Okay. And building a course where the people are passive consumers of the content, where we're just pushing content at them the whole time, and it's sort of this, what I call this very much this sort of laid back course where you can just lay back and just consume the content. Okay. Generally, it's going to result in a lower level of engagement. Whereas if we actually build some stuff in there and actually build stuff that requires people to think a little bit, that challenge them, maybe gives them an opportunity to fail, and fail is the first attempt in learning. If we build those challenges in there, then that is going to be another way to look at how we can keep them engaged in the course. Okay, give them a great challenge and a goal to aim for. Can also looking at the media that you use. Okay, as I said, I come from 20 plus years of experience with learning design, and one of the things that we've seen and truly believe that to deliver a effective learning experience, you actually need to have a mix of media, and you need to have media that is matched to the method. So many courses we see nowadays are just video after video after video. Video is a great medium, but it's not the only medium. And certainly having courses that are just all video is also going to potentially result in disengagement by the audience. So thinking about keeping people engaged, you want to make sure that they've got a challenge, that it's solving a problem for them, that they are actively involved in the learning process, and provide a mix of media. Also looking at the visuals and the multimedia and everything else that you're bringing into that. Okay, blog article I did just the other week was talking about Mayer's 12 principles of multimedia, and that ties very much into this engagement piece as well, where you're looking at different ways you can engage people, or potentially ways that we often see things not necessarily done properly when we're looking at using multimedia. So looking at how you can use the multimedia and the visual design principles to engage people as well. Also, look at gamification elements. Okay, a lot of people love badges and love points and are motivated by those sort of intrinsic rewards that are given to them. So look at how you can actually build those sort of things in there as well. So gamification elements of badges, points, etc. And also looking at is there any way to provide nudges or triggers to keep people engaged? So if you have got someone that's starting to drift off, that may be starting to disengage, then looking at, is there some ways that we can identify that, looking at your data, looking at your analytics behind the course, and going, okay, we want to sort of re-engage those people as part of that process. The other thing then is looking at, well, okay, why What is it that people really love? And so many people go, I like face-to-face learning more than online learning. Okay. One of the reasons why they like it is because of the social aspects. Okay. We are social creatures. We love to learn from each other and with each other. And often when we go into an online course or when we've got content created in a digital experience, people are quite isolated or feel isolated. So looking at, well, how can we actually bring some of that social elements in and getting people engaging in conversation? And that's also another way to help people get engaged in the course. So a couple of different things there to answer that question. How do I keep people engaged in the course? Solve a problem. Give them a target, a goal, a mission, something that gives them something to move towards. Look at making sure that you're using appropriate visuals and multimedia as well to engage with people. Bring in the social elements. There's something else I said and I can't remember what it was. The other thing, actually, I forgot about that with engaging the course as well, is make it the right size. Okay, there's a lot of talk out there around micro learning, and there's a few myths out there that saying that we've got the attention span of a goldfish. That's been proven that's not the case. But what is the case is we have a lot of other things that are distracting us. We've got so many other things coming into our into our lives, and sensory things might be things popping up on your phone, notifications, emails, text messages. There's a whole range of other media impacting on us. So often if you've got a course that's too long or a piece of content that's too long, again, some of those things are going to impact and people are going to become disengaged. So look at trying to make your content a bit smaller as well is another good way to keep people engaged. So focus it just on a single objective and just try and achieve just that objective, and a bit more micro or bite-sized. Now, what is the right size? That's, again, a bit like how long is a piece of string, okay? And it really needs to be as long as it needs to be, okay? Again, I'm not really giving a definitive answer, but what I'm saying there is that if you've got a piece of content, you've got an objective that you want to achieve, and you can deliver that and provide that objective to your learners in 2 minutes, then it needs to be 2 minutes. There's no point waffling on for another 5 minutes, okay? If you've got a piece of content and you need to, deliver content, and it's going to take 10 minutes to deliver that content to achieve that objective, then again, it needs to be 10 minutes. Trying to deliver it in 2 minutes is not going to be enough. You're not going to give them enough information. So, yeah, make sure that it's the right size, but without being too long. Focus on a single objective. So, so a number of different things that I've got there around how to keep people engaged. Solve a problem, give them missions, goals, look at how you can bring in gamification elements to motivate and reward them, give them little mini goals that they achieve, and that's where the badges can come into it. Look at how you can use your visual design principles and multimedia principles to engage people. Use a mix of media. And call it social learning and making sure that it's the right size. Okay, so that's another one there. Just going to take a quick drink. Right, how are we going for time? Okay, 25 minutes in. Okay, a couple more questions that we've got there. Okay, so I'm looking at recording all of my content with me presenting the camera or presenting my PowerPoint slides. Is this the best way? Okay, so I think I've sort of answered that a little bit when I'm talking about people engaged. And all of the content with you presenting the camera or presenting the PowerPoint slides, probably not the best way. Think about, is there other media that you can bring in? How are you actually going to engage with people? How are you going to get them to interact, get them to respond to your content? Are you going to give them some other things that they can do to challenge them? Look at what you can do as part of that process in terms of the if you are doing video and things like that, then looking at, well, what is the objective of you delivering that piece of content? One of the issues that we often see is people will just do everything talking to camera, okay, and all very much the same, can result in a bit of lack of engagement. Certainly presenting, doing sort of slide shares, presenting to your PowerPoint works really well. But again, and if we go back to the Mayer's multimedia principles, one of those principles is redundancy. And quite often what we see is people will have their PowerPoint, and their PowerPoint is just a bit of text on the screen, and they're just reading that and recording you reading that text, okay? And that brings in this principle of redundancy, where we don't actually need text on the screen and someone reading it at the same time. So if you are going to be looking at putting in a PowerPoint and doing a slide share with talking over your PowerPoint, look at, again, how you can bring in some visual elements, images, etc., and not just simply talking to the slides or reading the slides as you go through. So certainly look at recording some content, but also thinking about, well, what other content, what other ways can you bring in other content? So is there other interactive elements? Can you create something maybe as a interactive HTML5 object, bring in just maybe it's a Word document or a PDF that they can read and go through? Or is there other pieces of content that you can bring in? Maybe it's an animation, it's still a video, but it's presented in a completely different way. So a few different things there, but so I don't think that is the best way in answer to that question. I would look at other media and look at matching the media to your method. If you're actually wanting people to actually do things, then think about, well, how can we get them to do that? Okay. It's a bit like, if you stepped into a classroom, okay, and all that would happen is if you just stood at the front of the classroom and just presented the whole time, probably going to disengage people. They're probably going to be disengaged by the end of the course. But if you actually bring in some activities, get them to do some other things, get them to interact in a number of different ways, then you can look at, probably providing a better way of the experience. Next question. People have told me to sell my course before building. Isn't this wrong? What should I do? Okay, great question. Isn't this wrong? Selling your course before building. No. Simple answer. Okay. Is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. Okay. Now this is outside of course building, but a great example of this selling before building or selling before creating. You've just got to look at Kickstarter. How many projects and things have been put on Kickstarter where someone goes, hey, I've got this great idea for a product. Is anyone interested in it? Do you want to buy it? Now, you're probably buying it at a discounted rate. But what this does is it gives people an indication, and you go throw something on Kickstarter and say, hey, I've got this great new product. Who wants to buy it? Okay. And one person says, yeah, I'll buy it. You're probably going to go, you know what? This ain't the product for me. We're probably not going to be very good in the product. But you throw it on Kickstarter and go, hey, who wants to buy this product? And then you get 10,000 people saying, yes, we love it. Great idea. We can do that. Then that tells you that, okay, there's a market for this product. The same thing with your course. Okay. Now, obviously, you want to do some market research when you're looking at, well, what problem do I need to solve? But also pre-selling your course also gives you an idea on, is there a market out there for it? Okay, so it's not wrong. Now, what would be wrong is to say, hey, we're going to sell the course and take money and then not deliver. So if you are going to pre-sell it, then you need to be, pretty confident that you're going to be able to build it in a relatively short time frame. You certainly don't want to go, hey, yes, we're going to take your money, we're going to pre-sell the course, but hang on, the course is actually not going to be available for another 12 months. Okay, that's probably a bit wrong, take that situation. You're probably also not necessarily going to sell it for the for the full price as part of this pre-sell. But it certainly gives you a great opportunity to do some market research and to see, well, is there the market? Are they actually willing to pay what you're asking for the course, and go down that path? So second part of that question, what should I do? Yeah, you should look at how can you sell or pre-sell your course, okay? As I said, though, you want to have a look at, well, what's the time difference? I probably wouldn't want to be promoting a course and then not delivering it. I think anything past 3 months, maybe even 2 months, is probably too much, okay? But it also depends on the course, okay? So you don't necessarily have to build everything either, okay? Depending on the course that you're creating. Maybe you don't build it as a full, completely online, sitting in a platform type course. Maybe your first course you build is simply a collection of Zoom or virtual tutorials that you can deliver quite quickly, and gives you an opportunity to build that out very quickly, but you're still delivering the same content, but delivering it in another way. And then obviously bring in other elements and other activities. So it gives you an opportunity to, really structure out that content, gives you an opportunity to test it as you go through, and obviously building out any tools and templates that go with that. So so what should you do? Yep, look at how you can pre-sell your course. Make sure that you are prepared to do that. Also, if you are going to pre-sell a course and it's a rather large course, then from a safety point of view, maybe you want to drip feed the content, which also then allows you to continue to build while people enroll. As I said, you don't want to have too much of a lead time. So if you go, okay, we're going to pre-sell the course and we're going to launch it in 6 weeks, then potentially you could be doing a fair bit of work and could become quite an overwhelm if you're trying to build a relatively large course in that time. So maybe you just focus on the first module or chapter or first couple of topic, whatever you call them, chapters, modules, topics, build a couple. And if you're going to then have it drip fed, then you can keep ahead of the audience and keep building while the course is still running. Okay, so hope that has answered that question. Cool, and I'm just going back. I'm just going to quickly refresh my questions list here. We've got one last question on the list for today. So it's an interesting one. Social distancing rules are relaxing and face-to-face workshops are coming back. Should I still think about creating an online course? Okay. Yep. Some great questions today. Really, really interesting. Okay, so I'm going to answer this by actually throwing it back with some questions. First question is, do you want to scale your business? And if the answer is yes, then you need to think about potentially how you can do that in the digital space, okay? You are always going to be, if all that you're doing is face-to-face, you are going to potentially be quite limited in how many people that you can get into a room, or you're going to be limited to the geography, the location that you can deliver it. Maybe you can travel around and do a lot of those things. But there is going to be a limit to obviously the number of people that you can get together as part of that program, okay? So first thing is, if you say, yes, I want to scale it, then you've either got to think about putting it into the digital space or really having a program that can be traveled around and attracting quite a few people as part of that process. The other thing is then, the other question I'll be asking is there anything in the course, in your face-to-face course, that cannot be duplicated into the online space? Is there anything that cannot be duplicated? Okay. Now, generally, what we see is that most things in a face-to-face course can be duplicated into the digital world. Okay. Now, it's not necessarily just putting it online, but maybe you could go virtual as well. Okay. If you're thinking about you're running a face-to-face workshop and you want to put people into small groups and have a discussion, well, then you can go to Zoom and do breakout groups, okay? If you're presenting a lot of content, well, then that's where your videos and texts and PDFs and other learning assets then go into the online space. So if you look at all of that and go, okay, can I substitute this experience that I'm delivering in the face-to-face with something that's digital that can be put online, then you can do that. Or can I augment it? Can you add extra things to it? Okay, so it might be looking at, okay, we've got the Facebook group, but then, the Facebook group, the breakout rooms. But then you might want to put in there and augment it by giving them a digital whiteboard, something like Padlet or Mural, that allows them to sort of engage with each other in the virtual space, and they can all see what they're writing as part of that process. Okay. Can you modify the experience to make it better in the digital space? Or could you replace something? So maybe you're doing something in the face-to-face, and could you actually replace it with a different experience in the digital? So if the question is yes, all of those, I can, substitute or augment or modify or replace something to turn it into a digital learning experience, then yes, I think you should be looking at creating an online course. Okay, if your course is highly involved with a lot of human interaction, requires a high level of energy, then I'd probably say no. Okay, I attended a professional and personal development workshop over the weekend, and it was very high energy and a lot of close, human-to-human interaction. There was a lot of activities and things that we did as part of the experience that really would have been extremely difficult to duplicate into the online space. So, looking at that course and going, could this be put online? I don't think it could. So if you've got that sort of course that does require a lot of that human interaction, high energy, and can't be duplicated, then my answer to you would be then no, you can't create an online course, because it is really going to devalue the experience and you're not going to have the same outcomes that you want to have. Saying that though, there was a number of elements during the weekend, during the workshop, where we were presented content to us, and that content could have potentially been presented in a digital format, and potentially we could have explored it before coming to the workshop, which may have reduced the amount of face-to-face time, and also gave us a bit more of an opportunity to learn and understand the content. So yeah, so social distancing rules, yes, they are relaxing. Face-to-face is coming back, but yeah, if you want to scale, then I still think you should be looking at considering and moving what you can into a digital learning experience, or at the very least looking at a blend of the face-to-face, the virtual, and the online. So again, I hope that has answered that question. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of our 45-minute Tuesday talk. Thank you, everyone who has tuned in or is listening to the recording. As I said, this is a new thing that we're doing, and we're going to be back next Tuesday at this stage, 2:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. As I said, the link is in the chat, bit.ly/FAQ in capitals, superb lowercase, if you want to put in a question for next week's Tuesday talk, where we're going to talk about how we can turn your expertise into an educational enterprise. Thank you very much for everyone attending.